In the heart of the African savanna, where survival is the only currency that matters, a creature so rare was born that even nature itself seemed to pause. An albino elephant calf, white as fresh snow under the blazing sun, its pink eyes scanning a world that would never fully accept it. The herd stood frozen, silent, as if weighing an impossible decision. What they did next would defy every law of the wild, every instinct carved into their bones by millions of years of evolution. Some say it was mercy, others call it a miracle. But what happened in those final moments, when death itself came knocking at the door of this fragile life, will shake everything you thought you knew about the animal kingdom. Because in the savannah, weakness is a death sentence. And this little one was marked from birth. The sun rose over the grasslands of the Texas Hill Country like a burning crown, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. But this wasn't Texas as most people know it. This was a private wildlife conservation reserve, spanning thousands of acres, where elephants rescued from various parts of the world were given a second chance at life. Here, in this kingdom of dust and acacia trees, a herd of African elephants roamed free, guided by a matriarch named Naledi, whose wisdom was as vast as the territory she commanded. Territory, in the wild, is everything. It's the difference between life and death, between abundance and starvation. Naledi's herd controlled the richest grazing lands, the deepest watering holes, the safest sleeping grounds. In the currency of nature, they were royalty. But on this particular morning, something was different. The herd had gathered in a tight circle near the edge of a dry riverbed, their massive bodies casting long shadows across the cracked earth. At the center of this circle lay a young female elephant named Amara, her sides heaving with exhaustion, her eyes clouded with pain. She had been laboring through the night, and now, as the first light of dawn broke through the trees, she finally gave birth. The calf slipped into the world, wet and trembling, and for a moment, there was only the sound of Amara's heavy breathing and the distant call of a fish eagle somewhere in the sky. Then, slowly, the other elephants began to move closer, their trunks reaching out to touch the newborn, to welcome it into the family. But as they drew near, something made them stop. The calf was different. Its skin wasn't the usual dark gray of elephant hide. It was white, pure, ghostly white, like bone left too long in the sun. Its eyes were pink, sensitive and vulnerable, already squinting against the harsh morning light. An albino, a creature so rare that many elephants live their entire lives without ever seeing one. In the wild, albinism is not a blessing. It's a curse. The herd fell silent. Naledi, the matriarch, stepped forward, her massive frame towering over the tiny calf. She extended her trunk, touching the newborn gently, feeling its heartbeat, sensing its fragility. Around her, the other elephants waited, their own trunks swaying nervously. In nature, there are no second chances for weakness. A white elephant would be visible to predators from miles away. Its sensitive skin would burn under the relentless sun. Its pink eyes would struggle to see in the bright daylight. Every instinct, every ancient rule written into their DNA, told them that this calf would not survive. And more than that, it would endanger the entire herd. In the animal kingdom, power is everything. The strongest survive. The fastest escape. The smartest adapt. But the weak are left behind. It's not cruelty. It's the law of the land. And in the savannah, the land is unforgiving. Naledi had led her herd for over 30 years. She had seen droughts that killed half the population. She had faced down lions, hyenas, and even poachers with guns. She had made impossible decisions before, choices that haunted her in the quiet moments when the herd rested under the stars. And now, she was being asked to make another one. The calf tried to stand, its long legs wobbling beneath it, collapsing twice before finally finding its balance. It let out a soft, confused trumpet, searching for its mother's milk, for warmth, for safety. Amara nudged it gently with her trunk, her love for this tiny creature already overwhelming, already unconditional. But love, in the wild, is not always enough. Naledi watched them both, her ancient eyes calculating, weighing the cost of compassion against the price of survival. The other elephants looked to her, waiting for a signal, waiting for guidance. What would the matriarch decide? Then something happened that no one expected. One of the younger females, a bold elephant named Kiera, stepped forward and positioned herself beside Amara and the albino calf. She spread her massive ears wide, creating a shadow that blocked the harsh sunlight from the newborn's sensitive skin. It was a small gesture, almost insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But in that moment, it was everything. Because it wasn't about survival. It wasn't about instinct or evolution or the cold mathematics of nature. It was about something deeper, something that scientists still struggle to explain, even today. It was about choice. Another elephant joined Kira, then another, and another. One by one, the members of the herd moved to form a protective circle around the white calf, their bodies creating a living fortress against the dangers of the world. Naledi watched this unfold, her trunk raised high, testing the wind, listening to something beyond sound, beyond reason. And then, slowly, deliberately, she made her decision. She moved to the front of the circle, positioning herself as the first line of defense. The message was clear. This calf would live. The herd had spoken, but the challenges were only beginning. In the wild, there is no room for mercy without sacrifice. Protecting the albino calf would mean slower migration patterns, constant vigilance against predators, and exposing the entire herd to danger every single day. It was a risk that could cost them everything they had built, everything they had fought for. Yet here they stood, these giants of the savannah, choosing love over logic, hope over survival instinct. And as the sun climbed higher into the sky, casting its golden light across the Texas plains, the white calf nursed from its mother for the first time, surrounded by a family that had decided it was worth fighting for. In a world where power is measured in strength and territory, this herd had just discovered a different kind of wealth. The kind that can't be seen or touched, but that changes everything. The days that followed were a test of endurance unlike anything the herd had ever faced. The albino calf, whom Amara named Zuri, meaning beautiful in Swahili, required constant protection. Every morning, before the sun could rise too high and scorch her delicate skin, the herd would position themselves to create shade. They moved slowly, deliberately, adjusting their pace to match Zuri's limited stamina. While other elephant calves could walk for hours under the blazing sun, Zuri needed to rest every 30 minutes, seeking shelter under her mother's belly or in the shadow of the larger elephants. It was exhausting, it was inefficient, and it was absolutely necessary. Naledi understood something that most humans forget. In the animal kingdom, true power isn't just about domination or physical strength. It's about the ability to make decisions that define who you are as a group, as a family, as a legacy. Lions rule through fear and force, claiming their territory with blood and violence. Hyenas survive through cunning and numbers, overwhelming their prey with sheer persistence. But elephants? Elephants rule through memory, through wisdom, through the unbreakable bonds they forge with one another. Naledi knew that protecting Zuri wasn't just about saving one life. It was about teaching the younger elephants that some things are worth sacrificing for, that the measure of a herd isn't found in how easily they abandon the weak, but in how fiercely they protect them. But the cost was real. The herd's usual migration route took them across open grasslands where food was abundant and water was plentiful. Now, they had to avoid these areas during the hottest parts of the day, foraging in the early morning and late evening instead. This meant less food for everyone, more energy expended, more risks taken. The younger elephants began to show signs of stress. They were hungrier, more irritable, their ribs starting to show beneath their thick hides. Some of the older females exchanged glances that spoke volumes. How long could this continue? How much were they willing to sacrifice for a calf that nature itself seemed to have rejected? Then came the predators. A coalition of male lions had been tracking the herd for days, sensing weakness, smelling opportunity. Lions are opportunists, calculating hunters who understand that every herd has a vulnerable point, a crack in the armor. And Zuri was that crack. Her white coat made her visible from impossible distances. Even in the twilight hours, she stood out like a beacon, drawing attention from every predator within miles. The lions circled closer, their golden eyes locked on the strange pale creature at the center of the herd. They had never seen anything like it before. And what predators don't understand, they seek to destroy. It happened just after sunset, when the sky was painted in deep purples and oranges, and the world was suspended between day and night. The lions attacked from the western side, moving low through the tall grass, their bodies invisible until the last possible moment. But Nality had been expecting them. She had lived too long, seen too much, to be caught off guard. The moment the first lion broke from cover, she let out a trumpet call that shook the earth itself, a sound so powerful that birds scattered from the trees a mile away. The herd responded instantly, forming a defensive wall with the younger elephants and Zuri at the center. The older bulls charged forward, their tusks gleaming in the fading light, their feet pounding the ground like thunder. The lions had made a mistake. They had assumed that because the herd was protecting a weak member, they themselves were weak. But elephants are not weak. Not ever. An adult elephant can weigh up to 7 tons, can run at speeds of 25 miles per hour, can lift a full-grown lion and throw it like a rag doll. The lead lion made contact with one of the bulls, a massive male named Jabari, and was immediately tossed aside, landing hard enough to crack ribs. The other lions hesitated, suddenly realizing they had miscalculated. Nality advanced, her ears spread wide, her trunk raised high, releasing a bellow that spoke of ancient fury, of a power that predates human civilization, of a force that cannot be broken. The lions retreated, limping and bloodied, disappearing into the darkness from which they came. But the victory came with a price. Jabari had sustained deep claw wounds across his shoulder, blood streaming down his gray hide, mixing with the dust beneath his feet. Another female, one of Nality's daughters, had been bitten on her hind leg, the wound deep enough to make her limp. The herd had won the battle, but the war was far from over. And at the center of it all was Zuri, oblivious to the violence that had erupted around her, nursing peacefully from her mother, her pink eyes half closed in contentment. She didn't understand yet what her existence cost. She didn't know that every day she lived was paid for in blood, in sacrifice, in the collective will of a family that refused to let her go. That night, as the herd rested under a canopy of stars, Nality stood watch. She thought about the years behind her and the years ahead. She thought about the younger elephants who were learning what it meant to be part of something greater than themselves. She thought about Amara, whose love for her daughter was so fierce it could move mountains. And she thought about Zuri, this impossible, beautiful creature that defied every law of nature, that should not exist, and yet did, that was weak and vulnerable, and yet somehow the strongest force in the entire herd. Because in protecting her, they had discovered something profound. They had discovered that the greatest treasure in life isn't land or water or food. It's the choice to love something so completely that you're willing to risk everything for it. That's power. That's the real kingdom. And as long as Naledi drew breath, as long as the herd stood together, no predator in the world could take that away from them. Where are you watching this video from? Spain, Mexico, Chile, the United States, or somewhere I can't imagine? Tell me in the comments. I want to know where this story resonates with you. Weeks turned into months, and Zuri grew stronger, but not fast enough. While other calves her age were running with the herd, playing in the mud, testing their strength against one another, Zuri remained frail, her white skin perpetually sunburned despite the herd's best efforts to shield her. Her eyes, those strange pink eyes that made her so unique, struggled to focus in bright light, forcing her to stay close to her mother even when the other calves ventured out to explore. Amara never left her side, not even for a moment. The bond between them was something beyond instinct, beyond biology. It was devotion in its purest form. But nature is not impressed by devotion. Nature demands results. And the reality was becoming clearer with each passing day. Zuri was not thriving. She was surviving, barely, held together by the collective will of a herd that refused to give up on her. The rainy season arrived late that year, turning the grasslands into a sea of mud and flooding the watering holes until they overflowed. Most years, this would have been a blessing, a time of abundance when food was everywhere and the herd could rest and recover from the harsh dry season. But this year, the rain brought something else. It brought sickness. Zuri was the first to show symptoms. Her breathing became labored, each inhale a struggle, each exhale a wheeze. Her trunk hung limp, unable to lift water to her mouth, unable to grasp the vegetation that Amara tried to feed her. Her body temperature spiked, her white skin turning an angry pink, hot to the touch. Amara tried everything, using her trunk to pour cool water over her daughter's back, fanning her with her massive ears, calling out in distress to the other elephants. But nothing worked. Zuri was dying. In the wild, death is not a stranger. It's a companion, always walking beside you, always waiting for the moment when your strength finally runs out. Every animal knows this. Every animal accepts it. But knowing something and accepting it are two different things entirely. Naledi watched as Amara refused to eat, refused to sleep, standing over her dying calf with a determination that bordered on madness. The other elephants gathered around them, their trunks touching Zuri gently, offering what comfort they could. But comfort cannot cure illness. Comfort cannot change the inevitable. Then something happened that even the most experienced wildlife researchers have rarely witnessed. The herd began to sing. It started with Naledi, a low rumble that vibrated through the ground, a sound so deep it could be felt rather than heard. One by one, the other elephants joined in, their voices blending together into a chorus that seemed to come from the earth itself. Scientists call it infrasound, sound waves below the range of human hearing, used by elephants to communicate across vast distances. But what the herd was doing now wasn't communication. It was something else. It was a prayer. For 3 days and 3 nights, the herd stood vigil over Zuri. They didn't migrate. They didn't forage. They didn't rest. They simply stood there, their massive bodies forming a protective circle, their voices rising and falling in that ancient psalm, calling out to something beyond the physical world, beyond the laws of biology and evolution, calling out to God. Because in moments like these, when science fails and medicine fails, and every logical solution has been exhausted, all that's left is faith. The faith that life is more than just chemistry and chance, that there's a purpose woven into the fabric of existence, that miracles can happen if you believe hard enough. And then, on the fourth morning, Zuri opened her eyes. Not the clouded, unfocused eyes of a dying creature, but clear, alert, aware. She lifted her trunk weakly, touching her mother's face, and let out a soft trumpet that sounded like music. Amara collapsed to her knees, her entire body shaking with relief, with gratitude, with a joy so profound it seemed to light up the entire savannah. The other elephants erupted in celebration, their trunks raised high, their voices calling out in triumph. Naledi stood at the edge of the circle, tears streaming from her ancient eyes, knowing that what they had just witnessed was beyond explanation, beyond understanding. Zuri's recovery was slow but steady. Day by day, she regained her strength, her appetite returning, her breathing normalizing. The sickness that should have killed her had been beaten back by something that couldn't be measured or quantified. Some might call it luck. Others might call it the collective will of the herd, their combined energy somehow tipping the scales in her favor. But Naledi knew better. She knew that in this vast, brutal, beautiful world, there are forces at work that we cannot see, cannot touch, cannot prove. And sometimes, when the need is great enough, when the love is pure enough, when the faith is strong enough, those forces intervene. The herd resumed their migration, moving slowly across the grasslands, Zuri walking beside her mother, her white coat gleaming in the sunlight like a beacon of hope. She was still different. She was still vulnerable. She would always require special care, constant protection, unwavering vigilance. But she was alive, and in being alive, she had given the herd something invaluable. She had given them a story, a reminder that in the grand kingdom of the savannah, where power is measured in strength and territory and dominance, the greatest power of all is the power to choose love over fear, hope over despair, faith over doubt. That's the real treasure. That's the currency that matters most. And as long as they carried that truth in their hearts, no challenge would be too great, no obstacle too overwhelming, no darkness too deep to overcome. Months passed, and Zuri continued to defy expectations. She would never be as strong as the other calves, never as fast or as resilient. But she had something they didn't have. She had survived the impossible. And in doing so, she had become a symbol, not just for her herd, but for anyone who has ever felt different, ever felt weak, ever felt like they didn't belong. Her white coat, once seen as a curse, became a reminder that beauty comes in forms we don't always recognize, that strength isn't always loud or obvious, that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is simply refusing to give up. Naledi grew older, her steps slower, her body weary from decades of leadership. But whenever she looked at Zuri, she felt young again, felt the fire of purpose burning in her chest. Because she understood now, in a way she never had before, that the true measure of a leader isn't found in how many battles they win or how much territory they control. It's found in the lives they touch, the hope they inspire, the legacy they leave behind. And her legacy would be this white elephant, this impossible creature that should not exist but does, walking proudly beside her mother, surrounded by a family that chose to see her worth when the world saw only weakness. The story of Zuri spread beyond the herd, carried by researchers and conservationists who visited the reserve, documented by photographers who captured her image against the golden backdrop of the Texas plains. People from all over the world came to see the albino elephant who survived, the calf that a herd refused to abandon. And in seeing her, they saw something of themselves. They saw their own struggles reflected in her pink eyes, their own battles mirrored in her scarred skin. They saw that survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about having someone who believes in you, who stands beside you, who refuses to let you fall. In the savannah, where survival is the only currency that truly matters, where each day is a fight against hunger, thirst, predators, and the merciless sun, Zuri proved that there's something even more valuable than survival. There's living, there's thriving, there's standing in the light, different and vulnerable and beautiful, and declaring to the world that you have a right to be here, that your existence matters, that your story deserves to be told. And when you have a family who sees that, who protects that, who celebrates that, you have the greatest treasure of all. So what do you think? Do you believe that what happened to Zuri was a miracle? Do you believe that sometimes, in this vast and often cruel world, love really can conquer all? Have you ever felt like Zuri, different and struggling, only to discover that there are people who see your worth even when you can't see it yourself? If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something deep and true, then it found you for a reason. Leave a comment below telling me what this story meant to you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you believe in stories like this, stories that remind us of the beauty and power of compassion, hit that subscribe button and join our family. Because this is just the beginning. There are so many more stories out there, waiting to be told, waiting to change hearts and open minds and remind us all that in a world that often feels cold and unforgiving, there is still magic. There is still hope. There is still love. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If this story touched your heart, please consider supporting us by looking for the thanks button with the heart icon below the video, so we can continue sharing more moving stories.